My name is Mila West, 31 years old, a perfumer. My nose can distinguish thousands of scents: earthy fishy of iris root, creamy sweetness of tuberose, smoky scents of dar. These hands bear faint pale yellow essential oils, with crushed herb seeds occasionally trapped under the nails. My perfume blending table is far more than an ordinary desk. It is a library of scents. On the left lie citrus ingredients, the cold bright freshness sweet orange and the slight burnness of grapefruit. The middle area is dedicated to floral mascus rose, hidden Indian and jasmine sweetness, and thus violet leaves. On the right are woody and mossy aromas, like the low base of the earth. Every raw material has its own temperament. Oak mist must be stored away from light, otherwise it will turn sour. Nerilo oil crystals at low temperature and needs to be warmed in the palm for 20 minutes to regain fluidity. I know them as well as I know my own pulse. Every morning when I walk in here, I close my eyes and take a deep breath to sense my mood of the day. If I long for peace, I choose cedarwood. If I want to resist, I reach for patchouli. It is my interpreter to communicate with the world, and also my only mother tongue. The perfume brand I cooperate with is Nova Fragrance, whose CEO is my husband Derek Nova. We have been married for 5 years. He owned brand, and smell. At least, I once thought so. On our wedding day, he gave me a platinum ring engraved with "Your scent is my homed" words. With Sampin Ivy 3 Jews with Seridif Larndim to they pumping till I am the hometown. The words still remain there, yet the painted lily of the crawl has faded away. 3 years ago, I created a wet soil and crushed green leaves. Its top rim notes must collected 2 hours after rain, neither damp nor dry. The middle notes are white flowers mixed with a hint of ozone. The base notes are moss and wood. The moss is picked from the north side of tree roots and aged for at least 1 year. The wood material is cedar root, whose sense is deeper than tree trunks, bearing the warm temperature of earth. I specification is numbered every testing no 1 and V2D7, with detailed of regulating temperature, proportion, standing time written densely in my notebook. I ignored his opinion and kept adjusting the formula. When he smelled the finished product, he fell into a long silence. Then he raised his head, with a strange gleam in his eyes I had never seen before.
This will win.
I kept that look in my heart for a long time. It was not the tender gaze a husband gives to his wife. It was the excitement of a hunter spotting his prey. I once mistook it for sincere admiration, only to realize later that it was merely value evaluation. The Golden Olaring Award, the highest honor in the perfume industry, is presented once every 2 years. Nova Fragrance has failed to get shortlisted for 4 consecutive sessions. This year, Backyard After Heavy Rain was shortlisted for the Best Emerging Perfume Award. On the night the nomination list was announced, Derek opened a bottle of vintage champagne. He held me tight and spun around in the living room, with champagne spilling onto my dress.
Mila, we made it.
He said we, and I took it as sincere love. The award ceremony will be held in Paris in a week. I started packing my luggage and ironed my formal dress. I took out the perfume the safe on the rains after hack rained. The Solt Mesward is my birthday. Derek knows clearly. I wrapped it carefully of foam paper aluminum outside to be mant temperature situation. Derek said he would go to Paris in advance to meet sponsors and let me fly there 2 days later. I did not think too much about it. On the morning of departure, I made the final perfume adjustment, reduced the concentration by 0.5% to make the 2 mots clearer and brighter. He dipped his finger into the residual liquid on the scent test paper, smelled it, nodded slightly, and put his hand down. He picked up his suitcase and walked towards the door. He turned his head and glanced at me.
Mila, you will go down in history.
I stood in front of the perfume table holding a boryuct, suddenly feeling something was wrong. It was not simple intuition, but a heavy and tangible unease. It was just like a drop of ink falling into clear water, spreading slowly and irreversibly. I could not tell what it was, yet it froze my hands in mid-air. The notebook was open. Recorded my adjustment ideas for the 238th formulae written last night. His gaze stayed there for half a second, longer than the time he looked at me. I used to take it as affection, but now I finally understand, it was just stock capping. I downed the beer rat. I walked over to the window. His car was still parked downstairs with the engine idling, and Bice's chase pipe come out from the Weissel pipe. He seemed to be looking mobile in the car, staying there 2 minutes, but they cried away. During those count minutes, I hid low behind the curtain. He could not, nor could I see his expression clearly. But I could smell the exhaust as drifting up from downstairs. The insufficiently burned hydrocarbons were pungent with metallic extrigness. This smell became one of the top notes of betrayal in my memory. I put down the botte and walked into his study. I never went in usually. It was his exclusive territory with the door always closed. But I could smell the exhaust drifting up from downstairs. The insufficiently burnt hydrocarbons were pungent with metallic astringy. Documents spread all over the desk left aside, with a broffi cup at the bottom of the cap, and the ink had condensed into solid dark blue on the nib. He left in such a hurry that he did not even time to put away his bay. I picked it up. It was the Golden Ofert Oflischen Award. The Eptonshire lawn was printed with Derek Nova, and Perfumer lawn was this printed Derek Nova. My handwrited records were few and of the formula appendix. I threw in wanted to laugh. He had even prepared all scanned copies. It meant that he had planned all this for at least several months. For months he slept with me every day, said I love you to me every night, and every kiss was just a careful layout. He never discussed it with me, nor hinted a single word in advance. He erased me completely from my own work, as cleanly as erasing pencil marks with an eraser. 3 years, 237 formulums, more than 1,000 days and nights. Every drop of essential oil I used, every beaker I broke dozing off at the perfume table, all turned into a single line under his name. All of a sudden, many things became crystal clear. I finally understood why he suddenly became so interested in perfume blending. He began coming to the lab frequently, sitting beside me and asked all good questions.
Weishimov du usnik for Jonmins. How conjured of diwe the tistingly.
Once he even showed up at the perfume table at 2 in the morning, saying he could sleep and came to see me a cup of warm milk. When I take the milk, I caught sight of his eyes lingering on the open page of my note for 2 seconds. At that time I thought it was sincere care. I thought he wanted to walk into my world out of love, but he was stealing all along. He used his identity as my husband to steal the wisdom of a perfume. I squatted down to pick up the document. When my fingers touched the paper, I felt an unfamiliar coldness, not from the paper itself but from its heavy weight. The document was far thicker than I expected, with more than a dozen pages of attachments at the back. Because I had no idea what to say. Should I yell at him? Question him? Make him change it back? It was all useless. Since he had already submitted the application, he had no intention of turning back. The screen dimmed after the call ended, reflecting my own face. My face was pale, eyes red, corners of my mouth drooping, looking like a stranger to myself. I stood in his studio, surrounded by his lingering scents, aftershave, coffee and leather. These smells once made me feel safe and secure. Now they made me feel disgusted. I closed the study door and walked back to the corridor. On the corridor wall hung our group photo taken in Greece last year. He put his arm around my waist, and I leaned on his shoulder, with the blue rooftops of Santorini in the background. I was smiling widely in the photo, which now looked utterly ridiculous. I reached up, took down the photo frame, and placed it upside down on the cabinet with the glass facing down. I never wanted to look at it again. That night, I didn't turn on any lights. I sat on the floor leaning against the leg of the perfume table, clutching a sample bottle of Backyard After Heavy Horn tightly in my hand. The bottle grew warm in my grasp, the temperature of the glass blending with the heat of my palm. Moonlight streamed in through the window, and the glass bottle cast a faint light spot swaying on the back of my hand. The whole house was dead quiet. Only the low hum of the refrigerator and occasional running water sounds from the heating pans. It felt just like an empty shell. I finally burst into tears. It was neither silent weeping nor loud wailing. I held back my sobs deep in my chest and pressed a clenched fist against my stomach. Sour surges welled up in my stomach, rising to my throat only to be swallowed back again and again. I cried not because my techniques had been stolen. I cried because I could never tell exactly when he had turned into this kind of person. Perhaps he had always been like this. I just chose to turn a blind eye and believe blindly. I used to think the man who put a ring on my finger at the wedding was different from the one who schemed to write all ownership under the company name in contracts, but they were the same person all along. After crying, my nose was filled a salty and urgent smell just like sea breeze. It was the first time I realized that tears had their own unique scent. It was not the scent of sorrow, but an ancient, instinctive signal for help. My sensitive nose had never identified this smell before, for it had never needed to, but tonight, it learned. It was 3 o'clock in the early morning. I got up and turned on the small lamp on the perfume table. The light lit up roses of neat brown glass bottles, standing like a silent army. I picked up the buryak and started to work. I was not recreating Backyard After Heavy Rain, but making something brand new. I took a clean measuring cylinder without looking at any formula notes. I closed my eyes and let my aptary memories guide me. First, I opened galbanum. It stood for anger, bitter and sharp like resin oozing out from tree wounds. Then I reached for tuberose. It represented unwillingness, clingingly sweet yet hiding primitive warmth deep inside. In the end, I added a tiny amount of guayacol. It smelled like charred wood. I suddenly realized I was not blending perfume at all. I was shaping all the unspoken words I had kept hidden for 3 years into tangible form. I wrote a brand new number in my notebook, B01. B stands for betrayal. I spent the entire day calling lawyers. The first was a friend's referable, expensive, fast-talking. I'd never forget, Mila, in front of a contract, talent is worthless.
Mila, do you have proof the formula is yours?
Yes, my handwritten notes, spanning 3 years, every page is dated.
Are you on Nova's payroll or a freelancer?
I'm an independent perfumer. Nova is my partner brand. I'm not an employee.
Did you sign a contract? What does it say?
I dug out the contract. It was a stack of A4 paper, rust staples, curled edges, signed 5 years ago, drafted by Derek. I didn't even finish reading before I signed, because I trusted him. Trusting enough to sign without reading wasn't romantic. It was stupid. I finally admitted that to myself. The clause was beautifully worded. All perfume formulas created by Perfumer Mila Western for Nova Fragrance shall be the sole property of Nova Fragrance, including all intellectual property rights. No mention of credit. No mention of perfumer attribution, not even on the bottle. The lawyer sighed.
Mila, you signed. The formula belongs to the company. You can fight for credit, but that's a public battle, not a legal one. And he's already submitted in Paris with his name. It can't be changed before the ceremony in a few days.
After hanging up, I sat at my station and read the contract from start to through. I knew every word, but together they felt like a oak wall. I didn't fail to read the contract. I failed to read Derek. He hid the trap in all rights belong to the company, using the company instead of Derek Nova to make it all seem legitimate. And I was the one who jumped in willingly. I hung up. No credit meant no perfumer's name. He wasn't stealing my formula. He was using a loophole to turn I created this into the company owns this. And he was the company. He was my husband. He was the man I trusted when I signed. That night I sat at my station for hours staring at the mother solution of After the Storm Garden. Under the light it was pale amber, clear, quiet, like an innocent baby. I reached for it, unscrewed the cap, and brought it to my nose. Top notes still damp soil and greens, heart still white flowers and ozone, base still moss and wood. It hadn't changed. I had. The first time I smelled it, my heart was full of creative joy. Now, my mouth tasted like iron.
Subtle, raw essence fills the perfume studio, blending with the night chill. Every handwritten note, details formula crafting steps, and marked timestamps bear solid witness to all my dedicated efforts.
The rust on the staples and the curled edges of the paper are all evidence of the 5-year trap Derek set for me. I stood there silently, staring at the contract on the table, feeling the weight of betrayal pressing down on me. It is still the pale amber color I created, clear and pure, but it can no more bring me the joy, more hope. Only the dead silence despair fills the entire perflight. I stood alone in the dimmed, surrounded by the traces of my hard work, but I felt empty and helpless. On the 4th day, I flew to Paris. In my suitcase, besides my gown and the After the Storm Garden sample, was a small glass vial. 30 milliliters, dark brown, no label. Inside was not a perfume. It was a weapon. Before takeoff, I wrote a formula list in the waiting lounge. Orange Blossom Essential Oil, Egypt, 12%. Jasmine Absolute, India, 8%. Gardenia Absolute, Overripe Batch, 15%. Guayamam, diluted to 1%. Dried Rose Infusion, lab-made. Moldy Oak Moss, aged 3 years. Synthetic Siver, trace amount. Ratio 3:2:4 0.51 1.503. Every ingredient measured to the milligram. Mixing order precise. Temperature held at 22 C plus 0.5 Celsius. A perfumer's obsession became my advantage. Mixed in order, ratio, and temperature, then rested 48 hours, they became a scent. Not just unpleasant, a sweet rot. Top notes so beautiful you let your guard down. Heart notes slowly oozing decay. Base notes leaving an inescapable feeling of betrayal. I named it betrayal. Most people thought I was making stinky water. No, betrayal doesn't make you gag right away. It first gives you the sweetest promise, orange blossom morning, jasmine moonlight, garden eyes innocent white. You let go, breathe deep, then decay seeps out slowly, gently, like trust turning yellow at the edges. Only at the end do you realize the lingering moldy oak moss is the rotten core they've always had. I just translated it. Perfume never lies. The people who wear it always do. After takeoff, I leaned against the window, watching the clouds outside. Beneath them, gray-blue ocean. Above, blinding sunlight. I remembered Derek's first trip with me to Paris 6 years ago, not long after we got together.
Mila, you're the most sensitive person I've ever met. Your nose, your heart, both 100 times finer than mine.
I landed in Paris. He was there to pick me up. He wore a dark navy suit, hair perfectly combed.
Honey, you're here.
He hugged me and kissed my cheek. His voice was excited. He didn't sense a thing, because I acted perfectly. I even linked my arm through his, pressed my cheek to his shoulder, like any wife reunited with her husband. His suit was fine wool, soft to the touch, carrying his usual cologne, bergamot, amber, a hint of earthy vetiver in the base. I once loved this scent. Now it made my stomach twist softly, but I didn't show it. In the car, I smiled and asked if Paris was fun. He said he'd take me to good food. He held my hand, his thumb circling my wrist. He'd done that for 5 years. Every time it made me feel loved. This time, it made me feel measured. That night, we drank champagne on the hotel terrace, the Eiffel Tower lit up.
The day after tomorrow, the whole world will Nova fragrances.
I looked into his eyes, the eyes I once thought only looked at me. Congratulations. I said, congratulations. He smiled happily. He didn't know the champagne in my glass was bitter. Bubbles burst on my tongue, the sting of carbon dioxide briefly masking the bitterness, but when I swallowed, the bitterness rose from deep in my throat, stronger than before. It wasn't the champagne, it was me. The bright lights of the Eiffel Tower couldn't warm the cold in my heart. The bubbles faded, just like the love I once believed in. We were so close, yet worlds apart. The weapon was ready. Soon, he would taste the bitterness of betrayal. The night before the awards ceremony, Derek went to a sponsor dinner. I stayed alone in the hotel room. The room was huge, dark red carpet, heavy velvet curtains. The air conditioner hummed like a giant insect breathing inside the walls. I pulled the small brown vial from the hidden compartment of my suitcase and unscrewed the cap. The liquid inside was pale gold, clear and transparent. I brought it close. Top notes, orange blossom and jasmine, fresh, sweet, innocent. Like a good wife's smile. But I knew it would change. Slowly, irreversibly, activated by body heat, it would become something else. I took out the micro sprayer I'd brought from home. Lab-grade, ultra-fine mist, no visible traces. The nozzle was needle-thin. I'd calibrated it 3 times to ensure each spray was exactly 0.05 milliliters. Derek's white shirt hung in the closet. His favorite, only for important events, stiff collar, platinum cufflinks. Tomorrow, he would wear it in front of the whole world. I stood in the closet and took a deep breath. The closet was tiny, 2 square meters, a spotlight above, cast pale white light, turning his shirt into a patient on an operating table. I aimed the sprayer at the inside of the shirt, not the collar, not the cuffs, but the chest, over the heart. I pressed. The mist settled evenly on the white cotton, almost colorless, no watermarks, just a faint dampness for a few seconds. When it dried, nothing would show. I sprayed 3 times. Enough scent to be detected on stage, under the lights, amid thousands of breaths. 3 times, not 4. 4 would leave visible dampness, shining under stage lights. 2 might be covered by his cologne. 3 was the limit. Molecules activated by body heat, peaking at exactly the 15-minute mark of the ceremony. This was a perfumer's math. He stole my formula, but he didn't know my greatest skill wasn't writing formulas, it was calculating when a scent would reach the audience's noses. After the 3rd spray, I didn't leave right away. I stood in front of the shirt, watching the faint dampness on the chest dry slowly. The liquid seeped into the cotton fibers, silent as water into sand. I suddenly realized, when Derek put on the shirt tomorrow, the first thing to touch betrayal would be his skin, not his nose, his chest. The scent would rise from his body heat, bypass his mind, and sink straight into his breath. He'd be surrounded before he could react. It was the gentlest, cruelest revenge I could think of. I put the sprayer back in my bag, the vial in the hidden compartment. I closed the closet door. I went back to the bedroom and sat on the bed. My fingers were shaking, but not from fear. It was because I knew, in that moment, starting tomorrow, I would peel off the thin sugar coating called marriage between Derek and me with my own hands. What was underneath? I didn't know. But I knew I had to. Derek came back. He'd been drinking, his face flushed. He brought in the smell of the dinner. Tannic red wine, smoky roast beef, burnt cigar, and a mix of women's perfumes clawing like a spilled candy store. He talked with me by the shoulder.
Mila, after tomorrow, everything changes.
Yes, I said. He didn't hear the double beginning. He came out of the shower in a towel, hair dripping wet. Water dripped from his shoulders onto the carpet, darkening small circles. He smelled like the hotel's shower gel, Verania, fresh, slightly sour, mixed with his body heat, like summer. I sat on the bed in my nightgown, pretending to read. It was a hotel tourist guide. I'd flipped to a map of the Jardin des Plantes, staring at the green squares for ages, not reading a word. He brought in the smell of the dinner, red wine, smoky roast beef, burnt cigar, and a mix of women's perfumes like a spilled candy store. He picked up the white shirt, looked at it, set it down, hesitated. My heart raced. But he noticed nothing wrong. He chose a more formal tuxedo jacket and hung the shirt back up.
Sleep early. We have to get up early tomorrow.
He kissed my forehead. I turned off the bedside lamp and closed my eyes. His breathing soon stabilized, soft, drunken snores. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Parisian ceilings are high, with carved plamer moldings. I stared all night. I watched the plaster patterns blur into another memory. Our wedding night 5 years ago, Derek hugging me, cedar and amber on his neck.
Mila, your scent will stay on me forever.
I believed him. Now the Paris ceiling was blank. I closed my eyes, trying to find a hint of cedar in the pillow's residual scent. Only laundry detergent and sweat. Scents really do fade, much faster than memories. At 5 a.m., still dark, Derek rolled over, one arm slung across my waist. His arm felt heavy and restrictive, weighing on me. I didn't push him away or move. I just let myself feel the weight. Last time, I thought. Last time being held down by him. When the sun came up, everything would change. I smiled.
Hey, over here!
Reporters shouted, "Look here!" I turned my face for the photos. No one knew what I hid under my collar. Our seats were in the third row, center stage. Derek's arm rested on the back of my chair, occasionally squeezing my shoulder to say he was there. Once, this gesture comforted me. Today, it confirmed one thing: he was claiming ownership. Not of the stage, not of me, of After the Storm Garden. He thought it was already his. When the lights went down, the air in the theater turned heavy. Thousands of breaths merged, like distant tide. I looked down at my hands, nails unpolished, just shaped and clear-coated, a faint red mark on my inner wrist, a minor chemical burn from a spill of betrayal 2 days earlier. It didn't hurt, but felt slightly raised. I covered it with the back of my hand, not wanting anyone to see. The theater lights dimmed. The host's voice filled the hall.
Nominees for Best Actor in a Leading Role are...
Nominees were called one by one, polite applause after each. My palms were sweating, not from nerves, but from waiting for the moment he stepped onto the stage. Best New Fragrance nominees: Nova Fragrances, After the Storm Garden, Perfumer Derek Nova. The big screen showed a photo of the bottle and the formula description I'd written myself. I designed the packaging: frosted glass, handmade paper label, printed with a rain-soaked gardenia. Derek once said it was too plain, not commercial enough. But he used it anyway, because it was artistic. Now it was blown up 2 meters tall on screen, every detail clear: paper fibers, gardeny brush spokes, even the hemp string I'd tied around the neck myself. Under Perfumer, his name. Applause broke out. I heard someone behind me say, "Nova's having a big year." Derek sat up straight and took a deep breath. He glanced at his own collar. A tiny, almost unconscious move, but I caught it. He was checking he looked presentable. He didn't know a storm was brewing in his chest, a storm only noses could detect. The presenter opened the envelope.
And the winner is Nova Fragrances, After the Storm Garden.
Applause crashed like a wave. Derek stood up, straightened his tuxedo collar.
Mila, thank you.
He looked down at me, tears in his eyes. He said. I didn't answer. I just watched him turn and walk toward the stage. His back straight, step steady, every footfall on the red carpet. He climbed the steps and took the golden trophy, shaped like a perfume bottle, heavy, glowing under the lights. He stood before the microphone. The room went silent. I closed my eyes. I'm preparing.
Thank you to the judges, the Nova team. His voice was deep, emotional. This perfume took me 3 years.
He sniffed. I didn't look at his face. I watched his nostrils.
They flinched.
He smelled it. First the top notes: orange blossom and jasmine, fresh and bright. He probably thought it was his cologne, or a woman's perfume in the audience. His smile was still there. 3 years of careful crafting, from ingredient selection to ratio refinement.
Sweat beaded on his forehead. His lips paled.
Inspired by a storm in my garden.
People in the audience shifted uncomfortably. A woman in the front row covered her nose with a handkerchief.
Off-white linen. Her gesture was elegant, but her hand shook. My mouth twicked. Not a smile. Derek's voice began to crack. Not a mispronunciation, but longer pauses between syllables, like a stretched rubber band. He was fighting to stay calm, but his pupils dilated, his breathing shallow. I saw his atoms bubble bob. swallowing, again and again, trying to push down the scent rising from his chest. But the scent wasn't coming from outside Dard, it was steaming out of his own skin. He couldn't escape. The atmosphere of the venue turned heavy and depressing instantly. I sat quietly and watched all his reactions calmly. He unconsciously clenched his fists to hide his fluster. Most of the audience bowed their heads to avoid this awkward scene. His forehead hair trembled with his awkward breath. His uneasy look was clearly reflected on the ground. All surrounding noises faded away, leaving only his embarrassment. His shoulders kept trembling, and he could not calm down his breath. The whole competition scene was filled with unspeakable awkwardness. Cold and definite light hid in the bottom of my eyes. His face turned paler, and he completely lost his former poise. The whole venue gradually fell into strange silence. All his confidence and calmness collapsed thoroughly in this moment.
The bass notes hit. It was no longer sweet roast, but pure, unmasked betrayal, like someone you trusted most, poisoning what you loved most. No better metaphor, because that was exactly what happened.
Two people fanned themselves with programs. People looked around, searching for the source. An older man in the third row, I knew him, former head perfumer at a French fragrance house. No better metaphor, because that was exactly what happened. Settling on Derek's chest. Then his face changed. Not disgust. Shock. The shock of smelling something that should not exist. Derek's face went from red to white to gray. His lips trembled. His speech was breaking down.
This formula team.
His voice died. The trophy shook in his hand. The head judge, a French master perfumer in his 70s, had been leaning back with eyes closed. Suddenly, his eyes flew open. He tilted his head slightly, nostrils flaring twice. Then his gaze pierced the crowd and locked onto Derek's white shirt chest. In that moment, I saw his fingers slowly clench the armrest. He recognized it, not just bad, constructed. He smelled the structure, layers, narrative, a delicate building deliberately built on swamp. His mouth twitched, not distaste. Astonishment at the perfumery skill behind this weapon. Murmurs began to fill the air, not lines, real, uncontrolled fragments from hundreds of mouths.
What's that smell?
Who is it?
It's disgusting.
The voices buzzed like flies, growing louder. Derek stood center stage, spotlight on him, nowhere to hide. His white shirt blazed under the lights, the chest fabric soaked in betrayal. I stood up. I walked past row 3, 2, 1. All eyes followed me. A reporter lifted a camera. My heels made no sound on the red carpet. I climbed the stage steps. Derek turned and saw me, his pupils constricted sharply. He opened his mouth. No sound came out. I walked to the microphone and gently moved his hand aside. The trophy almost fell. He grabbed it frantically. I spoke into the mic. Not loud, but clear. This is the smell of plagiarism. The whole venue fell into dead silence the moment I finished speaking, and everyone's eyes fixed on the two of us on the stage. Derek was completely stunwards, stiff all over, and lost all the courage to refute. Was too straighted blowed the microphone with a cold and lomgui Derek, longingly as the cheesing ended steadily. A sudden silence fell, freezing everyone in their tracks. The audience went silent, as if someone pressed pause. The only sound was the faint hum of the air conditioner. Hundreds of people, suddenly so quiet you could hear the air conditioning. I took a deep breath and turned around, facing the crowd bravely. I turned to face the judges, reporters, peers, everyone with cameras. I have something important to say to all of you today. After the Storm Garden was created by me, Mila Wester, it's not just a perfume to me, it's my life's work. I spent over 1,000 days and nights, 237 formula versions, but someone stole all my efforts and took the credit for himself. My husband, CEO of Nova Fragrances, put his name on my formula. When he submitted it, the perfumer was not me. The unfair contract trapped me, leaving me with no way to defend my rights. The contract says the formula belongs to the company, so I can't sue. But perfume can't lie to a nose.
I have the proof right here, on my wrist. I held up my left wrist. I'd sprayed the real After the Storm Garden there. Come and smell it, and you'll know the truth. This the real one. You can smell it.
It's totally different from the one Derek presented.
It's real. She looked up at me, her face changing.
Her voice cut through the silence, reaching every corner of the theater. She said, not loud but the whole theater heard, "Don't just take her word for it. Come and smell for yourselves." I held my wrist out to row 2. Row 3. I have to check it myself to believe it. More people leaned in. They surged forward like a tide. Some stood up, craning necks, like pilgrims reaching for a relic. The perfume burned a little, but it was worth it to prove the truth. I'd sprayed too much perfume. The small patch of skin turned red, but I didn't pull back. Whispers spread quickly, filled with shock and doubt.
Murmurs erupted like a wave.
It's different. Completely different. No rot in her top notes. This is the real After the Storm Garden.
Now, I want to hear what you have to say, Derek. Panic surged through me as is in sweet. Panic surged through me as everyone's eyes turned to me. He stood there like a shattered statue. He said nothing. He couldn't say a word. His lips moved slightly. Then he turned around and walked off the stage, though it was not walking, but fleeing. He knocked over a photographer's tripod and staggered. Then he disappeared behind the stage wides. No one went after him. The black velvet curtains closed behind him like a heavy door. His footsteps came from backstage, hurried and flustered, fading away. Then came another dull thud. He might have hit something or fallen down. No one went to check. The chairman of the jury stepped onto the stage and took the microphone.
Ladies and gentlemen, the ceremony will be suspended for a moment.
He looked at me and nodded slightly. I didn't know what that nod meant, sympathy or recognition. I just stood there, holding the sample bottle of Backyard After Heavy Rain tightly in my hand. The glass bottle was covered with my sweat and fingerprints were printed on it like tiny identity certificates. The stage lights were hot, making my face burn. Someone pulled my arm backstage.
Mila, are you all right?
Her eyes sparkled with the admiration people have for heroes.
You are so brave.
I just don't want to act anymore. She handed me a glass of water. I didn't drink it. I just looked down at my hands, staring at the shallow scar left by the Busey. The scar was left 3 years ago. I was making the 89th version of Backyard After Heavy Rain. The burriette slipped from my hand. I reached out to catch it, got cut by bottom level lass. Now the scar has turned silvery white, like a tiny river. It turned out he was right. It was indeed a Medal of Honor. Only the one who awarded it was wrong. 10 minutes later, the chairman of the jury took the stage again.
After urgent discussion by the jury, Backyard After Rain is retained, but the Perfumer column will be corrected to Mila West. At the same, the jury condemns Nova Fragrance's application behavior.
Applause broke out from the audience. It was not polite and perfunctory applause, but real, emotional applause. And even some people were cheering. I did not take the trophy. I stood on the stage, looking at the little golden figure being handed over. "I don't want this," I said. The chairman of the jury was stunned. "I want is my formula. This trophy can be given to me when he admits it. I help the backyard yard to heavy rain pier and decide the wind below. This is my trophy." Then I screwed on the cap and put it into the pocket of my dress. The pocket was small, and the bottle bulged out a bag when I put it in. I pressed it with my hand to make sure it would not fall out. That was my trophy. It weighed 87 grams, much lighter than the golden trophy, but it was much heavier to me. I walked off the stage. The red carpet was very long and the lights were very bright. I walked slowly, trembling every step, but every step was straight. When I reached the end of the red carpet, I turned around and looked at the stage. The golden trophy was still standing on the podium. No one went to collect it. The spotlight shone on it. It sparkled like an abandoned child. I did not feel sorry or happy. I just took one last look at it. Then I turned around and walked into the darkness of the wings. Outside the side door of the theater, Derek's car was still parked. He was sitting in the car, his head resting on the steering wheel. I knocked on the car window. He didn't move. I knocked 3 more times. He finally reopened the door. The Yangs res want, as mission, and his shirt puistin otiens. Kuti descend with the pined quivme like a fading flower.
Why did you do this? You ruined me.
You ruined me first.
I didn't ruin you, The company needed this award. It didn't matter if your name was on it.
I stared at him. Derek, that was 3 years of my life. You say it doesn't matter? He fell silent for a long time. I could hear his breathing, heavy and uneven like a broken blower. There was the stand of a radio, the covers low in his peeing an old French song. He looked old, aged over.
Can I return you back the formula? We're already married. What's yours is one.
What's yours is mine. I'd heard that at our wedding, read it in love letters, felt it every time he said we, but tonight it meant something else. Not sharing. Devouring. Closed the door, not slammed it, just closed it gently, but the lock clicked like a ritual. I turned around and walked away. The sound of my high heels on Paris stone pavement grew farther and farther away. He didn't chase after me. I walked out of that street, turned a corner, and stopped under a street lamp. The night wind in Paris was cool, blowing on my face. I looked up at the sky. There were no stars, only a deep blue, silent dome. My phone vibrated in my pocket. It was a flight reminder for my return ticket tomorrow. I suddenly remembered that I hadn't bought checked baggage balance for the return trip, because I had little luggage when I came, but when I went back, I was left with an empty self. The next day, the video went viral. Clips of the awards ceremony spread like wildfire on social media. Headlines read, "Perfumer exposes husband's pleasure me live on stage." Views hit 20 million within hours. Thousands of new comments poured in every minute. When she said, "This is the smell of plagiarism," I got chills. That man is disgusting. She's incredible. She made a betrayal perfume on the spot? Revenge through genius. A textbook example of a strong, independent woman. One comment I read over and over from a user called Scent and Soul. Her nose can smell betrayal, ours can't. But she smelled it for us. I took a screenshot and saved it. Not for vanity, but in that moment, I realized I wasn't fighting alone. My nose had become the nose for so many people. My phone was flooded with messages. Interviews, lawyers offering pro bono help. Fragrance suppliers voicing support. A Nova distributor called to yell at me.
Mila, do you have any idea how many livelihoods you ruined?
I listened, then said only, "I didn't ruin them. He did." The distributor called twice more. I didn't answer. The third time, he texted, "You'll regret this someday." I screenshot the text and saved it in a folder named Evidence. Not to sue, but to remember. Not his threat, but how many people want you to fail when you do the right thing. Derek's phone went unanswered. His lawyer sent a cold email, requesting both sides stay silent and settle privately. It also implied my public statements had damaged the company's reputation, reserving the right to take legal action. I forwarded the email to Leah, an intellectual property lawyer referred by a friend. She replied with one word, "Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid." Just 2 words. I stared at them for 10 seconds, then set them as my phone lock screen reminder. Every morning when I unlocked my phone, those were the first words I saw. Leah Goldsbing, 45 years old, specializes in intellectual property rights and has been in the industry for 15 years. She asked me to meet her at a black satin suit with short cropped rapidly. The cafe was tiny, tucked in a narrow alleyway with wooden tables and chairs, faded posters hanging on. Leah ordered an espresso, finished it in 2 sips, set the cup down on the table, and began to talk.
She spoke quickly, yet every single word hit the mark firmly. "Mila, I've gone through your case. The contract is signed, so in principle the formula belongs to the company. But you have 3 things to fight for. First, your notebooks with dates and handwritten revisions which can prove your independent creation process.
His shirt?
Second, public opinion is fully on your side now. Third, he stole from you. You can present it as your artistic statement. Plagiarizers shall be punished by..."
He smelled betrayal on stage. That scent wasn't an accident, it's olfactory proof he stole from you. You can frame it as your artistic statement. Plagiarism gets punished by scent. As she said this, her mouth twicked upward slightly. Not a smile, but a professional, confident nod to her own judgment. I suddenly envied her. Her weapons were legal clauses, heavier and more accurate than my essential oil bottles. I looked at her.
I don't want him to go to jail. I just want my formula back.
"Then I'll negotiate for you. One condition, you stop publicly attacking Nova. Leave the rest to me."
I nodded. I trusted her.
Because the way she looked at me was nothing like Derek. She saw me, not the formula. When she left, she patted me on the shoulder firmly, hand strong like a man's. "Mila, do you know, you are the 3rd client I have met in 15 years who dares to expose the truth on stage. The previous 2 both won. You will win too."
My olfactin memory is a vault of scents.
I asked who they were.
She didn't say, just smiled, pushed open the door, and walked into the Paris rain. The negotiations lasted for 2 weeks, that the board of Nova wanted to calm down the scandal as soon as possible. Its stock price had nearly halved, and distributors threatened to terminate cooperation. Derek was asked by the board to resign as CEO, while remaining a shareholder. On the day he signed the document, someone told me that he had cried in his office. When I heard the news, I was testing a new formula at the perfume blending table. My hands never stopped, but my heart skipped a beat, just one beat.
Then I kept twisting the bottle caps and recording data. I knew I ought to feel something: triumph, sympathy, relief, but I felt nothing but calm acceptance of what was happening. All rights to Garden After Heavy Rain, including the formula, trademark, and commercial development rights, belong solely to Mila Wester.
In return, I would drop all further legal action against Derek and Nova Fragrance, issue a settlement statement, and stop public discussion of the incident. I agreed. I never wished his ruin. I only wanted Garden After Heavy Rain to live on. The signing took place in a lawyer's office. Derek did not show up. Instead, his legal representative came. The lawyer wore a dark gray suit and a pair of gold-rimmed glasses, speak perfectly tuctily.
Miss Mila, please sign here.
I picked up the pen and wrote down my name, Mila Wester, on the signature line. I pressed so hard that the nib sank into the paper and left deep marks. I finished signing, put down the pen, stood up and walked out of the office. The sunshine was bright over Paris. Walking along the street, I felt relaxed for the first time in a while. I walked along the Seine River for a while. The bookseller glanced at me and asked in French,
Mademoiselle, qu'avez-vous gagné aujourd'hui?
I've won myself back.
I replied. He did not fully understand me, yet he picked up an old copy of Perfume from his stall and handed it to me, its title page torn off.
It's a gift for you. Some books lose their beginning, yet their stories still go on.
I took the book and put it into my handbag together with the signed contract. The Parisian sunlight fell gently on the pages. Free from redundant labels, everything felt pure and clean. I never opened that book ever again. It stayed on the top shelf of my perfume blending table, placed alongside my most precious raw fragrance materials. I've kept this book not for the words it contains, but for the ones it inspired and that healed me. Books have no beginning, yet their stories still carry on. I came back home and returned to my perfume blending table. Everything was still there. The cabinets of raw materials, my notebooks, and the original essence of Garden After Heavy Storm. Yet all of Derek's belongings were gone. His photos were taken off, cleared from the shelves, and his scent swept away by the ventilation fan. I looked around, and for the first time I felt this space really belonged only to me. I spent the whole afternoon reorganizing my blending table. I rearranged all the raw materials not by brand or price, but by my own familiar olfactic route. Floral scents on the left, woody notes on the right, citrus in the front, and animalist aromas in the back. It was my own unique map. Every placement was my own decision, with no need to discuss or compromise with anyone. I took out the formula of Garden After Heavy Rain and wrote down my name, Mila Western, in the Perfumer column. Then I began to plan what to do next. I had no factory, no sales channels, and no sufficient funds. All I had was a blending table, hundreds of fragrance raw materials, and a formula that had been stolen and finally returned to me. But I was no longer afraid, for no one could steal from me ever again. That night, I blended a bottle of perfume just for myself. It had no name and no recorded formula. Its main notes were white musk and iris, soft and pure, just like freshly washed bed sheets. I sprayed it on my pillow, lay down and closed my eyes. The gentle fragrance surrounded me like a thin yet solid armor. I slept soundly without any dreams. I launched a crowdrading campaign. It was called Garden After Heavy Rain Returned Edition. I wrote a paragraph on social media. 3 years ago it was stolen. Now don't need much money, just a lot of trust. I made the crowd main behes using a template. Packaging mimji was who I asked. I didn't hire a designer because I had no money. But I revised every word on the page many times, reading each sentence aloud to make sure it sounded like me, not someone else. In 24 hours, among the supporters, we raised 1.5 million strangers, as well as many perfumers, buyers, and journalists in the industry. A well-known perfume blogger reposted it and said, "This is not crowdfunding. This is Derek's former assistant donated 1,000 yuan anonymously with a note." I looked at that note, and my eyes felt warm, not because I was moved, but because I was confirmed. Not that I was crazy, but that the unease I felt those years was real. That night, I sat at my perfume blending table and read through the list of supporters on the crowdsourcing page from start to finish. Many of the avatars had no names behind them, solely a string of numbers, but used to think Rec Trust was free, so it was worthless.
Now I know it's really too valuable to pull a trussin because it requires taking a risk me.
On the launch day of the first batch of After the Storm Garden, I went live from my perfumery station. No set, no filters, just me, hundreds of bottles in front of me.
This is After the Storm Garden. I made it for the world 3 years ago. It was stolen a year ago. Today, it's home.
Only a few hundred people watched live, but every bottle sold out instantly. I can smell your support.
That night, I sat at my station, breathing in the lingering of bass notes after the storm guard moss and wood, quiet, deep. Not from pain this time, but from finally being seen after so long. Seeing me cry, Sit Xiaohe brought in a glass of warm water. Just pushed the tissue box closer.
Mrs. Mila, you know there's a second half to After the Storm Garden? When I was little in the countryside, the garden after a storm wasn't peaceful. All the bugs came out, frogs crowed loudly, snails who chewed through stems. But the next day, the flowers bloomed even better. I think that's
Xiaohe left after saying that.
I sat at my station, holding the warm water, staring at the brown bottles under the light.
They still looked like a silent army, but no longer against me. They were my army. The garden blooms better not because of the storm, but because the flowers learn to root deeper in. I did not mass-produce betrayal. Someone sent a private mess offered 50,000 to buy the formula, but I didn't reply. An art institution approached me to cooperate on an exotic art exhibition with the theme of deception. I agreed. I made 10 many versions of betrayal and placed them on the exhibition stand, with a note next to them. To those stolen things, please smell them, but there's no need to buy them. During the exhibition, a woman in a black windbreaker stood in front of the exhibition stand and smelled the perfume for a long time. Later, the staff told me that she stood there crying for 10 minutes, then bought all the exhibition souvenirs at the Menkrel. I didn't know her story, but I knew she smelled her own story in the perfume. On day exhibition ended, I went to take down the exhibition.
The 10 mini bottles were still there, untouched and not a single one missing. I put them into a foam box one by one, as carefully as I had wrapped their garden after heavy drain back then.
What are you going to do with these bottles? Donate them to the institution.
Really? This formula is worth a lot of money.
Things that are valuable are not necessarily precious, and things that are precious are not necessarily valuable. Later, I donated all 10 mini bottles to that art institution. They were more suitable to be placed there than I was. Derek completely left the perfume industry. He sold his shares to investors, and Nova Fragrance got a new CEO. On his first day in office, the new CEO sent me an email. Nova, we will watigmos dedos place this our sintity. I thought about it for 3 days and refused. Not because of hatred, but because I needed a chain that belonged only to me. From Royal and Finsel, from Shumtan to delivery, thank you, no need. I needed to see every mess. After sending it, I took a screenshot of the email and the reply and saved it in a folder called Boundary. It was not evidence, but a reminder. Reminding myself that the premise of cooperation was not sincerity, but equality. I found a small local factory. The boss was a woman in her 50s, surnamed the Jewel. She looked at my formula and said, "This scent is interesting." I said, "I found my own raw material supplier. Ordered my own butters, and packed the goods myself." She said, "You call the shots." That night, I couldn't sleep, not because of anxiety, but because of excitement. Boss Joe later became my most stable cooperative partner. She didn't talk much, but every word she said counted.
Mila, I've been an OEM for 20 years. You're the first outsider who showed me the formula.
You're one of us. Estos está free.
You are not a guest either.
After garden after heavy rain, I launched my second perfume. Tree hole, a woodly scent, warm and embracing, hiding two secrets in the oak tree hole in front when I sounds pawn eat. The promotion ad had only one sentence. No advertisements, no celebrity endorsements, no overwhelming marketing, but the sales volume was notly good. A customer let message, "He's gone, he's laugh in this scent." I looked at that message and took a screenshot of it to save on my phone. On dark days, I take it out to look at. In the weak tree hole Gwen on the Mentis, I received a package with no signed or information. When I opened, it was a hand-knitted scarf, camel-colored wall, high soft. There was inside, handwritten, "I lost your daughter, your tree hole smelled Miss Servants, her scent Miss Kai's, but Bushempelt I felt she was still here. Thank you." There's no signature on the note, only a lip print. Dark red, like a withered rose. I hung assist of the chair at my perfume blending table, and I touch it every day.
I started a community for independent perfumers, with free weekly online sessions. I'm not the type to hide knowledge. I shared every mistake I'd made, every fall, how to negotiate with suppliers, how to split costs with bottle factories. Someone asked, "Aren't you afraid people will copy your formulas?" I laughed. Formulas can be copied. The person who makes them can't. You can use my methods, but you can't make my scent, because you're not Mila Wester. The community grew from dozens to thousands. New grads in perfumetry, stay-at-home moms who quit to switch careers, retirees chasing old dreams. Every time I saw photos of their first perfume, I remembered myself, staying up till dawn at my station. One user never posted, only liked silently. Late one night, she sent a voice message, soft with a southern accent. "I never wear perfume, but I love smelling fabric. Cotton smells like sun. Linen is cool like well water." I didn't reply to her voice message, afraid to wake her. But I posted in the group, "To the 58-year-old sister, I want to buy your first perfume." Later, she really sent me a bottle. It was an old sauce bottle, cleaned, label removed, with no one written in marker.
You taught me smelling doesn't need a reason. I recently bought some essential oils and blend secretly at the back of the shop. When I made something nice for the first time, I cried. Thank you for making me feel 58 isn't too late.
I opened it and smelled sandalwood, patchouli, a hint of chamomile. Not a professional blend, unbalanced, not well integrated, but steady, pure, like a quiet afternoon bending over a sewing machine. I placed that bottle on the top shelf of my ingredient cabinet, next to the tattered perfume book. It was the least valuable, yet most precious bottle in my collection.
A year later, I received a letter. Handwritten. The handwriting was familiar. It was Derek. The postmark was from his small hometown in the south. I opened it. Plain lined paper, folded 3 times.
Mila, I don't know if you'll read this, but I need to write it. This isn't to ask you to forgive me. It's just to remember. I stole your formula not because I wanted the award. It was because I was jealous of you. You stand there, close your eyes, and you can smell an entire world. I can't. I've been in fragrance for 15 years. I've never smelled anything with my eyes closed. All I can do is calculate markets, costs, how to package someone else's me. After you left, I tried to make perfume. What I made smelled like disinfectant. I finally admitted it. I can't perfume. I can only steal. I'm sorry.
I read the letter 3 times. Then I folded it and put it in a drawer. But I didn't throw it away. It lay in the corner of the drawer, next to the clay trophy, like 2 silent kids who stopped fighting. Sometimes I open the drawer, glimpse the envelope corner, then close it again. That's all. A journalist came to interview me and asked how I thought about Derek now. He is the top note in my life, bright and sweet, yet fleeting.
Do you hate him?
I once did, but not anymore. To hate someone means keeping him in mind, and I don't want to spend time remembering him.
Then what do you spend your time remembering?
I remember formulas, the scents that brought me back to life, and all those who said they supported me during my live streams. I remember the people who sent me private messages. After the interview was released, someone commented that I was a queen. I reposted the comment and wrote, "I am not queen, I am just a perfumer. A queen needs subjects, while a perfumer only needs a sensitive nose." When the journalist was leaving, she asked an unlabeled Vardmaffarane from the perfume blending table and heat it to her. She took both hands as if for sacred treasure. Don't regard it as something sacred. It is just a bottle of perfume. If you think it smells nice, then it is good. If you don't, that is not. Your own nose has the final say, not me. My 3rd perfume came out. Erosion, a metallic scent. Top note is rusted iron, middle note is dried blood, base note is empty warehouse. It was made in memory of those moments when you were worn down yet still stood tall. I didn't hold a grand launch ceremony. I just recorded a video in front of my perfume table. I sprayed the perfume on the fragrance test paper and spoke to the camera. This scent is not sweet, not beautiful, and never tries to please anyone. It is just like the hardscab that slowly grows after you get hurt. The video gained over 1 million views. Many people said it was the ever-so painful smelt, yet also the most genuine one. Female entrepreneur for her team, no one can away from us. In the thing them severally engraved to Nord, this too shall pass. Not just decoration, art a reminder. It reminds everyone who wears it, as well as myself. The most painful things will pass, but they will never disappear. They will become part of you, just like rust sticking to the surface of metal, no longer bright but far stronger. After Nova got its new CEO, they offered to collaborate on a limited edition perfume with me. They offered a huge sum, on condition I publicly reconcile with Nova. I declined. Leah asked why. The money was good. It would fix my supply chain issues.
Money can buy a supply chain. It can't buy the credibility of standing with a company that took unfair advantage of me. Leah didn't push. What sets you apart and makes you resilient isn't your skill in fragrance creation. It's your inner strength and integrity. She only said the words about inner strength lingered in my mind for a long time.
I once thought I was weak, too trusting, too willing to give up boundaries for love. But Leah said I had backbone. Maybe she was right. Backbone isn't born. It grows after you break. Break, heal, break again, heal again. Every heal leaves a harder callus over the break. That callus is backbone.
I was invited to speak at TEDx. My topic is scent and betrayal. Over 1,000 people sat in the audience. The lights were so bright I couldn't see their faces. I did not spray perfume because I wasn't there to talk about scents. I was there to talk about the people behind them. Have you ever smelled betrayal? At the award ceremony, everyone smelled it. That scent of sweet turning rotten wasn't an accident. I made it. But I didn't make it to revenge. I made it because I needed to smell my own anger. Take it out of my body, put it in a bottle, and let it go. The audience was silent. Creativity stolen can be taken back. Trust stolen often can't. But you don't need trust to create. What you need is to stop trusting the wrong people.
You can give trust to many, but not to the one who makes you lose yourself. Applause lasted a long time. I didn't bow. I just stood there. The lights were hot, but I didn't tremble anymore.
I'm from an investment firm and I'd like to discuss a partnership.
Do you trust me?
I trust your talent.
That's not enough. I need you to trust me.
I need time.
Okay. I need time too. We exchanged cards and parted. I don't know if we'll partner, but I know I learned to ask that question.
After the speech, a young woman waited for me backstage. She was about 25, holding a notebook. Her eyes were red.
Ms. Mila, I'm a perfumer's assistant. My supervisor took all my formulas and called them teamwork. I'm scared to speak up. He's a legend in the industry. Do you have backups? Yes. I saved them secretly. Keep them. When the time comes, you'll know how to use them. When will that be?
When you're no longer afraid to lose him. She nodded, hugged the notebook to her chest, and left. I don't know if she'll fight, but at least she knows someone understands her fear and believes in her courage.
After she left, I stood there, suddenly remembering myself years ago, sitting at my station, clutching a formula, too scared to make the call. If someone had said to me, "When you're no longer afraid to lose him," would I have stood up sooner? Maybe. Maybe not. But at least someone said it.
As people left, a young man stopped me. He was in his early 20s, wearing a bone combustion headset on the ear. He showed me a note on his phone. I was born without a sense of smell. But I watched your talk. I think scent is like sign language, a language no one understands until you speak it. He write, "Thank you for turning scents into stories for people they can't smell." I screenshot those words. Later, I made a special perfume just for him. No scent, only water of different temperatures, because he said he could feel temperature. After he received it, he sent a 3-second voice message. I couldn't quite make out his words, but I heard his mom laughing in the background. Loud, bright, like sunlight hitting glass. I saved that voice message, named it Temperature, my company's 3rd anniversary. From one perfumery station to a full studio, from one person to a small team. My assistant said, "Ms. Mila, want to throw a party?" I said no. That day, I stayed alone at my station, blending my 5th fragrance. Base notes, white musk and iris, soft, clean, like freshly washed sheets.
My assistant brought documents and asked what I was making.
I said, "The scent of a weekend morning, no one rushing you to wake up."
She laughed. That's exactly what you're like now.
We'll laugh too. My 5th fragrance was named Sunday. On launch day, I posted a photo, a cup of coffee, a bottle of Sunday, and a streak of sunlight on my perfumery station. Sunday needs no reason, just like being yourself needs no permission. That post got over 100,000 likes. Many said they bought Sunday for friends, moms, and themselves for finally learning to rest. Reading those comments, I felt complete. Not the satisfaction of standing on stage surrounded by applause, but of sitting by a window with warm water, sunlight on my hand. Derek's flower shop closed. Someone told me he opened a small restaurant in his town. I found a blurry online video taken by a customer. He wore an apron, cooking in the kitchen. His movements were unskilled, but earnest. His hair was almost completely white. A comment said, "This owner used to make perfume. No wonder his food smells weird." I closed the page, stood by the floor-to-clean window, and drank iced coffee. Plane trees outshed leaves. The cleaner swept them into piles with a bamboo broom. The sound was smoothing, like white noise. I remembered someone once asked. I didn't answer then. Now I say yes. But next time, I won't give them the key to my perfumery station. Trust is like perfume. It needs top, heart, and base notes. Give a little first, watch how it unfolds, then decide if you want to spray more. This isn't calculation. It's maturity. The final lesson after the storm garden taught me. I don't hate him anymore. I'm finally indifferent. Indifference is light, lighter than forgiveness. Forgiveness takes effort. Indifference doesn't. Like closing a web page you don't visit, shutting a book you don't read, folding clothes you don't wear, and putting them at the bottom of a box. It's not gone. It just no longer holds your attention. Today, I moved into my new studio. Twice as big as the old one, floor-to-ceiling windows, full of sunlight. My new perfumery station is custom-made. Walnut wood, clear lacquer, much larger than before. Scratches from accidental Burex jabs cap edges marks for these years. No one can steal these marks. I hung the framed roughening directly above my new station where I can see it when I look up. One scratch is the deepest. 2 years ago, I'd stayed up late blending Formula 198. The Burex slipped. I reached for it and my nail carved a crescent moon into the wood. Back then, Derek had brought me a late-night snack, saying, "Don't work too hard." He set the bowl down, but his eyes were on my notes. Now that scratch remains. Moonlight falls on it, a silent witness.
Look, we survived.
It stays silent in the wood, but I smell its quiet approval in the scent of wood. My ingredient cabinet covers an entire wall. Hundreds of brown glass bottles arranged by note type. On the window sit a rosemary plant, gift from my assistant. I asked why. She said, "Perfumes need greenery. People don't have roots. Plants do." I stand at the window of my new studio, looking out. Below is a quiet street. Across is an old apartment building. Laundry hangs from balconies, red, blue, green fluttering in the wind. The air smells like laundry detergent and wheat from the bakery far away. These are ordinary scents. I once thought they were unworthy of notice. But now I know ordinary scents are the most honest. No formulas, no labels, they just are. I take out a new notebook. On the first page I write Mila Wester, independent perfumer. From today on, every formula is mine. No more we, no more company, just me. The storm has passed. The garden remains. My phone vibrates. It's Leah. The Golden Scent Award organizers asked if you'll be a judge next year. I reply with one word. Yes. I set down my phone, unscrew a bottle of After the Storm Garden and spray it on my wrist. It still smells the same. Damp soil, white flowers, ozone, moss. No rot. Never any rot. I lift my wrist to my nose and breathe deeply.
The scent flows into my mohs, past the olfactory bulb straight to my limbic system, the seat of emotion and memory. I close my eyes and see myself 3 years ago, staying up late at my station, scribbling in my notebook, laughing in Derek's arms. The images fast forward like a movie, then stop at today. Me alone, standing in a sunlit room, holding a perfume that belongs to me. No applause, no trophy, no husband, no company.
Only me and my nose. Enough. My name is Mila Wester, 35 years old, independent perfumer, founder. My nose can tell apart thousands of scents and the tiny difference between love and theft. Top note bright, heart note uneasy, base note chosen by me. No one can steal your scent. If they try, you just make a stronger one. Wind rises outside. Plane tree leaves rustle like an old friend clapping softly. The end.